Hey, hello everyone.
Welcome, welcome. We see some friendly faces in the chat there. People are ready and excited. We're ready and excited. My name is Grace Kendall.
And I'm Mike Belsel, and we co-run the Tabletop Mentorship Program. And you're probably used to seeing another face this season, Nathan Blades, who's been a fantastic host.
So good.
So
good that they deserve a day off.
Yeah.
So we're letting Nathan take today off. And Nathan will be back in 2 weeks to host the final video of our speaker series, which will be Kwanchai Moria talking about board game art and illustration. But we're not worried about 2 weeks from now. Today, we're just worried about today, and we are so excited.
So excited. We both got our red on.
Yes, red in theme for our special guest. Before we kick over to our special guest, we do just want to thank our patrons really quick here. Thank you so much to Angela Belsel, Curtis Fry, and R. Eric Reese for helping support these broadcasts. We've been doing the speaker series for 3 sessions now, and it's a joy every time to be able to share amazing special guests with specialized knowledge in the tabletop industry and all of their energy and enthusiasm and ideas with all of you. We will have a Q&A at the end of our presentation today, so if you have questions, you can hold on to those till the end, and we'll be happy to share them at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess without further ado, let's introduce our guest. You know her. She's a fantastic designer, designed 2 of my absolute favorite games in a bind, which you probably know as Yogi, and Wibble, which is now the L deck, doing some great stuff. Publisher, designer, artist,
streamer
extraordinaire and a half. Bez, welcome to the speaker series.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having me, Grace and Mike. It is a delight and an honor and a privilege.
Oh, we're so excited to have you here.
Absolutely.
I always love all your enthusiasm. I felt like maybe we should have improv'd a song to welcome you in the style of all of your streams, but I'm not sure I can live up to that legacy.
But that's the thing, like, sometimes it's just about doing it because it's fun. I mean, you need to lower your standards. And it's like, you know, sometimes doing something a bit rubbish, it can still be fun, and there's still massive value no matter what the thing is. Not that your song would have necessarily been rubbish, but you know what I mean.
But yeah, opening yourself up to the possibility of just doing it to enjoy it and not worrying about what the end result is going to be. I feel like that's an appropriate tie-in for what our subject today is, which is going to be talking about turning ideas into reality.
Yeah, I think that when you invited me to talk about this, I thought, okay, yeah, I do a lot of stuff, and sometimes it is, I guess I have tackled some issues. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about, you know, are things that I might not have experienced myself. A lot of this is just the first draft of thoughts. But one of my points is going to be that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And hopefully this will be of some value to a lot of the people watching.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when we, you know, we kind of go topic first, guest second. And when we thought of this one, you were the only name that was on our list to talk about it. I'm being completely serious. You know, like most people don't know, a few UK Games Expos ago, probably more than a few, Grace and I were in London, and I was helping out Bez with her booth, which was absolutely so much fun. It was like one of the best weekends of my life. And then I got to
I reckon that would have been.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And we I got to stay with Bez for a little bit and sort of like see your process of how you do like game design and prototyping. And at that point, you know, I was fairly new at design, and most of my stuff was all through the computer, you know, like I'm not an artist or anything. And then I saw you just sort of like write on blank cards, and you were, you know, throwing stuff out, scratching things away, keeping things like just willy-nilly and just, you know, fists of flying and all that kind of stuff. It was incredible. And it just like kind of like flicked a switch in my head that was like, oh, you don't need all that kind of stuff just to get your game out there. It can be so easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you don't know, you just don't know until you see it. So I'm so thrilled that you're here talking about this. All the
Thank
love.
you very much, and I'm delighted by all the peeps Tailwagon, Rob, and Lucurcia. It's lovely to see you all.
Yes. So we're going to go ahead and turn things over to you, Bez. Folks who are watching in here, feel free to keep a lovely dialogue and chat going on in the chat there. We're going to join you and keep some commentary there as well, so we can all be talking together. And then at the end, we will do a Q&A so we can continue that conversation with Bez there.
And I just want to do a small parental advisory. There may or may not be some light swearing. So just keep an eye out for that.
All right, Bez, we're going to go ahead and let you take it away.
Thank you very much. And I've got a wee slideshow, and hopefully that can be popped in. There we go. And so, yeah, I will just plow through everything. I'm going to go through the sequence of things, and then I will answer all questions at the end, like Grace and Mike have just said. But hello, Manuel. It's lovely to see you. So firstly, this is what we're going to do. You can do things, you can make games, and I can do things. Going back to when I think it was Grace who reached out and said, do you want to do this? And then it was like, do I deserve to do this? Should I do this? Can I do this? And just like you can make a game, you can write the thing, you can do the art, you can do whatever you want to do. And so I thought, like, in the spirits of this talk, I should go ahead and accept it. So yeah, I'm going to talk about resources that you need. I'm going to talk about mental blocks and barriers, and that's going to be a big part of the talk. And then we'll have a bit of extra stuff that I forgot along the way, and then we'll have some Q&A. So firstly, who am I? I started off in 2014. Officially, I would say 1st of August 2014. That's when I kickstarted In a Bind. It's now been taken over, licensed as Yogi, and I self-published the L deck. I've designed a whole bunch of games for it and Cataclysm. I've worked not only with Gigamic, but also Alicat Games as a developer. ITB and Surprise Star Games have got some stuff off me. King's College London commissioned something. And the point is, sometimes it's not just about, hey, look at this one thing, Yogi. Honestly, the truth is, I don't think I will ever make something that sells as many copies as Yogi does. Like, it's probable I might be able to do it. I would like to be able to do it, but I might not. But that's not the point. You don't make one thing and then stop. It's like you keep making things, and hopefully they become better and better, or maybe they don't, and that's okay too. The most important thing is to begin, and then obviously to keep going. Like, that might sound self-evident, but what I'm saying is, right now, if you have the energy, you have my blessing to be multitasking. If you want to be doodling while I'm talking, if you want to be pondering other things, if you want to be sparking ideas, don't be saying, okay, I'm going to read all these self-help books as a way to procrastinate from actually doing the thing. It's just about doing the thing. You don't need me to give you permission. You don't need anyone else to give you permission, but just if you need permission, you can do the thing. So what do you need? You need some degree of skill, right? You need to be able to understand what is a game. You've probably developed some awareness of what's a good game just by playing it. You've got to have some time. You've got to allocate some time to making the things. You've got to have some energy, and these are all resources. And you've got to have some motivation. Why do you want to do it? Do you want to be making money? Do you want to be having your name on a box? Do you want to be, saying something with your art? Whatever you want to do, work out why you want to do it. And once you've worked out why you want to do it, then you're more likely to do that. Because frankly, if what you really want to do is to have your name on a box in a shop, and, well, maybe you don't need to print 1,000 copies. Maybe you could do a print-on-demand thing of 50 copies of a game and get your local shop to stock it. But work out what would actually make you happy. What is the challenge that you're trying to overcome? And finally, to make stuff, I think there is some degree of bravery. Like, you actually need to be willing to put yourself out there. You need to be willing to say, hey, this is my thing, and I'm willing to accept that it might not be as good as I would ideally like. Now, there's a lot of mental blocks and schemas that sometimes don't get talked about enough. There's the whole thing about imposter syndrome, right? but there's the, oh, I'm not good enough, or my art isn't good enough, or I need to be perfect. We might think, oh, people will hate my stuff. Why should I even be making it? My stuff will disappoint people. Sometimes when you're feeling low, you might feel like you're better off just hiding away forever. Sometimes you worry, like not all of these are things that apply to me. I'm actually quite good at having people reject or criticize things. What I actually get scared of is people ignoring it. I would far rather 10 people rate it a 1 than no one rates it at all. And so, but that can be a fear for a lot of people who might be scared of that rejection. Maybe you're scared of other people stealing it. Maybe you're fearful that other people are going to betray you. Or maybe you just don't feel like you deserve to share your voice. Let's talk about that. So, you think you need to be perfect. But firstly, do you expect other people to be perfect? Secondly, what is perfection? Because what you see or what someone else sees as perfection might actually be different. You're simply going for one state of this is what I want to do. And again, if there's something like, okay, I drew this line, let's say you're doing some art and then it goes a bit skew-whiff. Maybe you're a bit annoyed with yourself, but maybe that energy is something that someone else likes. Now, the other thing I wanted to say is exactitude is unattainable outside of a mathematical construct. So let's examine that a little bit. Sure, if you've got a mathematical proof for something, sure, that is perfect. If you are in science, then suddenly there is no perfect. There is simply when you prove something in science, it's just, this is likely to be so. Think about the way that when you measure the coastline, do you assume you've got a cliff? Maybe you start measuring it with a big ruler, and then you start measuring it with a smaller ruler, and then a smaller and smaller, and that level of granularity, you can worry about more and more infinitesimal details until you get far beyond the point where it even matters at all. And I think that's where a lot of creators, sure, it's good for you to be careful about your own work and to be critical of your own work and strive for improvement. But if you're striving for perfection, the imperfections that you see are probably going to be smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's just a case of try to be good, but if you can't, even that is of great value. Because even if you haven't made, even if it isn't not great, even if it's bad, even if it's terrible, I have made so many games that are terrible. Take them, like I wanted to show you this prototype that I made a while ago, and this is never been published or anything or mass produced, but I played it a few times, and we were like, yeah, this is, it's an abstract game. You cover things and then you try to make big shapes. The point is that you try things, and if it's terrible, then you don't keep going. You can try something else. You've learned something. Try an auction system, and if it's terrible, hey ho, brilliant, you've learned something. So let's say you're worried about people hating your stuff. Firstly, that's a good sign. And I've got a couple of quotes from Board Game Geek, and I assume this is fine. I attribute them to Sean Exor and Rissitron, however I pronounce that, on Board Game Geek. And feel free to guess which games these people are talking about. The point is that whatever you try to make, some people are going to hate it. So the first quote, I dislike when games require silly actions for the sole purpose of being zany and quirky. This game embodies the worst of that garbage. And those are some pretty strong words. The worst of that garbage. And that is, in case you hadn't already guessed, about In a Bind. Now, no, wait, I think that was actually about the new version, Yogi. But the point is, yeah, at the time, that stung. That made me feel, ooh, that's, what have I done? Have I failed? Then Charlie Paul, parts of Surprise Star Games, said to me, well, if that person dislikes these kinds of games, and what you've made is the worst of that garbage, that means that you have embodied this thing. You have made it, pushed it as far as it can go. You have clearly done something of value. I mean, if you are the worst of any garbage, unless you're doing something immoral or actively harmful to other people, embrace it. If you want to make a game where people are singing and there is no win condition, embrace it. If you want to make anything, like, I had to be given permission back in the day in, I think, 2013, 2012, when I started working on In a Bind, now known as Yogi. I had one card that was physical. Everything else was just a bunch of shifting cards around, stealing cards, calculating points. And then one person said, hey, Bez, it seems like you want to make this physical game. If you want to do that, do that. And that was Ben Neumann. And it was such good advice. You shouldn't need permission, but you absolutely should. And the second quote, it removes all the best parts of D&D and amplifies all the worst parts of D&D. Basically just tedious set combat pieces with limited actions and no opportunity for character development or actual roleplay. And again, feel free to guess which game this is, but it is Gloomhaven, the #1 rated board. Oh, well done, Manuel. I think you probably got it just before I said it. So yeah, that's the thing. And I really like what Rob's saying. Having a 1 rating for one of my games on Board Game Geek is one of my milestones for success. Absolutely. Because if some people are going to love it, if it is truly something of value, some people are 100% going to hate it. Now, sometimes you're worried about disappointing people. If you're prone to depression, you can sometimes feel like you just want to hide away from everyone. You want to do nothing. You want to avoid disappointment. Firstly, you don't have to release everything. Secondly, you will grow, you will learn. And no matter how things go, you will have learned from this. I want to say set expectations, and this is kind of a weird one, because if you were to look at Kitty Cataclysm, the Kickstarter for that back in the day, I started off that Kickstarter page with a list of 5 reasons why you might not want to back. And my new game, I call it Bezzy Budget Bags, where I say, yeah, there's no box. It's something that I put a bit less effort into. It's lower stress for me. And hopefully people understand that. And that's why I'm doing it in a low production run. I'm charging a bit less for that. And yet, after setting those expectations, sure, if you set those expectations low, that might be a way of safeguarding your ego. Admittedly, I do have a fragile ego. That is something I'm willing to admit. If you set the expectations low, then hopefully people will be delighted, because I really don't want to be disappointing people, sorry. I mean, I don't like being disappointed by people, but I especially don't want to disappoint people, especially after they've got my stuff. Now, some people are really worried about rejection. Some people crumble after it. And for some people, this is the truth. And to those folk, I want to remind them, you are not just what you make. You are not your actions. I mean, sure, as a human, we are our past, our present, and our future. We are our relationships. We are the sum total. But think about economic status. I mean, would you really say to someone, oh, this is your economic status, therefore that is you? No, I hope to hell that you wouldn't. Therefore, you probably aren't going to say Isaac Childress is Gloomhaven and nothing more, because you're aware that these people are people. And so let's say you do end up making a game. Let's say people do get disappointed. Let's say people do say, this thing is rubbish. That's fine. You have made a rubbish thing. Maybe you do make a rubbish thing. Maybe you do rubbish things. Maybe you do have relationships that go bad, or times when you feel like a bad friend. And that's okay, because we as people cannot be perfect. We just do the thing and try to do the best we can. And so, yep, some rejection and criticism is just people being jerks. Look, it's the internet. You are going to get people saying really mean things. Some of that criticism and rejection is from people being in the wrong audience, and some of it is actually super valuable. And it's that final bit which I think it's worth examining. So let's say you're making a game and people say, oh, this is super hard. Well, that doesn't sound like they're being jerks. If they say it's super hard, are you actually making a game for a super literate gaming audience? Or are you making the game for the type of audience that was playing? And what could you do it to reduce the complexity? You've got to, this is again one of those skills where you have to try and work out what's going on, where that criticism is coming from, where that rejection is coming from. But all the time, bear in mind, you are more than one thing. Another tip that I didn't write down, but I just want to throw it in there, is doing multiple things can really help you with that. Imagine you're going to a playtest every week. I mean, I haven't been to a playtest every week for years because, hey, pandemic. But imagine you were going to multiple playtests, and then each time you take a new game and sometimes you bring the same game along. That's going to teach you that, yes, some of these games are good, some of these games are bad. Sometimes I do good stuff, sometimes I do bad stuff. And that doesn't make me a bad person, because we need to divorce the ego from the product. And yep, love what Rob's saying there. Game design provides so many opportunities for rejection and criticism, playtesting, pitching, selling, and reviews. Sometimes I was trying to look through schemas, and I was doing a wee bit of research and trying to see how they aligned. And one of those things might be a sense of entitlement, and you don't want to work for it. If that's you, then frankly, you have to do the work. But sometimes you're just scared of the work. Sometimes you're just, it's too much. It's like, whoa, there's so much going on. Set aside time. Even 20 minutes can help. If you set aside time, maybe it's before you go to bed, maybe it's before this, when you're putting yourself into little, make some sorts of routine if you can. Remember, what are the things that need to be done? It's not just about getting the game done and nothing else up to that point matters. It's not even just doing the first prototype and nothing up until that point matters. Do what you can. Write half a deck. Write down some ideas for things. Do what you can. Maybe you're lacking in that motivation. Maybe you want to find a co-designer, work with others, find that connection. Or think back to what you enjoy. Focus on that, even if it's inefficient. Like Mike was talking earlier on about the computer, doing stuff with computer. I personally do enjoy hand drawing cards. Yes, sometimes I can wield a pen faster than I could type and then print. But sometimes, truth be told, I could possibly do it a bit faster on a computer if I learned and enjoyed that. People have often said prototyping on Tabletop Simulator is really efficient. I made a decision around this time last year to say, okay, Tabletop Simulator, Tabletopia, these are my main ways that I could be playtesting, but I'm not going to. You don't have to do everything. You are allowed to say, this is the work I'm willing to do, this is the work I'm not willing to do. Maybe you get value out of making a really nice looking board. It's a bit inefficient, but as long as you're willing to throw that away, that's the bit that matters. So we've got the scheme of mistrust. Other people will steal this thing, so I shouldn't even make it. Firstly, yes, it happens, and it has happened a lot, especially with published games and with Chinese companies. That sounds terrible, but it's just the fact of the matter is that most forgeries and that kind of thing come out of China. But in terms of showing something to a company and then them taking it from you or someone else seeing your design, it isn't something that happens that often. For any reputable company, it is much easier to pay a licensing fee for like 5% or even 10% than risk the bad press. Because if word gets out that this is what they've done, they will be hounded out of the industry. I would say you've got to build up this sort of trust that you have. Start off, sure, sharing it with maybe friends, maybe family, people that you trust, but try to expand the circle. Go to the playtesting meetup, visit there a couple of times until you're like, yeah, actually, these are decent people. They're not going to steal my thing, and get to know them. So it's people who are coming, and when I wrote designers, not friends, you want to have people who are willing to tell you what is wrong with your game at that point. And so the final schema is that maybe you don't deserve to share your voice. My things don't belong here. If you feel that way, then that's a sign that you are bringing new stuff and diversity. Let's say everyone else is doing games about trading in the Mediterranean, and then you want to do a game about actually throwing pens into the air and catching them again. I mean, sure, that sounds pretty wild. I don't know how big a target audience there would be for a game about throwing pens in the air and spinning them and catching them again. I don't know how exactly that game would work, but that shows that you are bringing new stuff and diversity. You are expanding the envelope of what's going on. And so, yes, 100%, you might be different, but you are pushing the boundaries, and that is so much more valuable. Now, I want to say, assuming consent, whatever you do is okay. Now, nice pun, Manuel, pandemic. So, look, think about environmental impact, because the world is not something that can really give or deny consent. Also, think about not just the people involved in the game, but also the consent of those depicted. As long as your game isn't actively doing harm, then whatever you do is okay. Never feel like you have to fit within that tiny box. You can do whatever the hell you want. And finally, my final thing to ponder is, why do you deserve to do this? Simply because you are doing it. And so if you ever have that imposter syndrome saying, I shouldn't be here, the reason that you deserve to be here is because you are spending the time, taking the time, spending the energy to make the things, do the things. And even if you have one of those outlandish flashes of inspiration, and there you go, nothing is perfect, typo, that was meant to be flashes of inspiration, you deserve it because you were the one to make it a reality. Look, don't be copying stuff, don't be taking stuff without consent, but do your own thing and be proud of who you are. Now, I want to talk, we were talking about environmental impact, and Manuel also says it's a big motivation for me to make more print and plays instead of mass production. And that's exactly something that I want to talk about. Print on demand. Maybe you want to make 50 copies. Maybe you want to do something as a one-off production. Maybe you want to do something where this is a labor of love and there's only one copy in existence and you give it to a friend as a birthday present. I have someone who I know made a little game with little miniatures that were representing different people and little bottles of Buckfast, because that's a thing in Glasgow. And that's a kind of labor of love, that it's like a little love letter. And also sometimes, again, not everything has to be a direct path to this game's bad. Okay, now it's good. Now it's great. Now it's better. That is one of the lies. It's like, okay, I make this game. Oh, it's good. Okay, it's okay. Okay, I can't work out how to take it from okay to great. Okay, let me try something else. Okay, this game, I've got some new ideas, I've got some new skills. Sometimes trying those things is the value. I wanted to give you a couple of quick tips. I mean, hopefully these are something vaguely actionable. Firstly, I want to encourage everyone to just write down what you can. Type up the rules. Draw a board, whether it's digital or on a bit of paper. I mean, once you've actually made something that firstly, you solidify the idea in your own mind, and secondly, you've got something that now you can share. Once you've got this foundation, now you can actually play it. And frankly, it's this sort of theory crafting in our minds is never as efficient as just getting it in front of someone else. Next tip, share it with others. So hopefully I've given you some encouragement to get out there and start writing if you want to write, or start making the game if you want to make the game, or start doing the art if you want to make the art, and share it. That's the important bit, because there's a thing by Malcolm Gladwell, I think, about like 10,000 hours of work, but the bit that people often forget is that it's meant to be with constant feedback. And yes, you can give yourself feedback, you can be introspective, but the best feedback is from other people. So share it early. Tell people, hey, sometimes I share something at a playtest meeting and I say, okay, this is probably a terrible game, but I would like to try it so I can see how it's terrible. And sometimes it's a terrible game. Quite often it is really bad, but sometimes it's, not terrible. Or sometimes there's a little gem of something that could become good. Share it. It doesn't need to be finished. The other thing is share it with people you feel safe around, people whose opinions you value, and finally share it with the target audience. At each of these points, you can expand it, and hopefully by the time you're sharing it with the target audience, you can show them something and say, would you like to play this? And that was actually quite a bit of the work for what became Yogi. Before the Kickstarter finished, I went around London, I went to pubs, I went to parks on a sunny day in Parliament Square, and I asked people, would you like to try our game for 10 minutes? And be willing for rejection, be willing for people to say, no, and they look at you like you're a crazy person, because it is a kind of crazy in this world to be this sort of vulnerable. But to make stuff of value, you have to be, I believe, a little bit willing to be more vulnerable than the norm. Sorry, my headphones have a problem, so I'm taking them off so they don't keep buzzing. Skill. Let's get back to those few things I said at the start you need. You can learn from other people. I attribute a lot of my skill to Mark Rosewater, head designer of Magic the Gathering. So many articles I read, and also 20 years, 20 lessons. Frankly, if you're watching me, you should definitely, if you haven't already seen it, watch 20 years, 20 lessons at some point. Read and learn, and however you have time for, because what I always used to find is that when I'm cycling from place to place, if I'm ever on public transport, which I never tended to be, I was always cycling, but you have that time listening to podcasts. I don't listen to videos, but if you do, then reach out to people, read forums, go to the Card and Board Game Designers Guild, however you find useful to learn. The most important thing is, of course, practice, to do the thing, to learn from it, to try the thing, to see how your expectations are mismatched from reality, to see how you get surprised. Surround yourself with folk that you can learn from. So my important thing here is to, if you are going to a playtest group, then hopefully you can interact with those people, learn from them, and you will be learning not just when your games are being play tested, because of course you learn for that one particular game, but from a wider, more holistic perspective, you learn simply by being at the same table with these people and seeing how they change their games, how they solicit feedback, the things that they do. And by being around these people, and the ideal thing is, of course, something like mentorship. As if you're not familiar with the values of mentorship, then I'm sure that Grace and Mike can show off some links about the value of mentorship. Be mindful in practice and reflect. When you've practiced, think about what you've learned. Think about what could have gone better, what went worse. As you see other people making mistakes, think to yourself, wait a minute, am I making those mistakes? There have definitely been times when I've learned from others from in a negative way, sort of saying, oh, wow, that person shouldn't be doing that. Oh, wait a minute, I do something not as bad as, but like I do a bit of that as well. And just be mindful. Time. So time and energy, and so this is a really uncomfortable truth, is the fact that I am really, really privileged that at this point, since I want to say since January 2015, I haven't been looking for any work outside of game design. I mean, there was a month where I worked at a board game cafe, but I am insanely privileged that, and anyone who's able to do this full time, they are insanely privileged. But sometimes you just need to snatch those moments when you can. Sometimes when you're going to a playtest and you're like, oh, I don't have anything. But sometimes it's like, oh, I'll wake up an hour earlier and make the thing, and I'll even work out all the rules, write down everything, and just do what you can. Lower your standards. Remember, it's not about doing something amazing. It's about doing something, having a foundation from which you can grow. Keep doing the thing. Do whatever you can. And this is another thing, like energy. Some people have masses of energy and or bundles of energy. I mean, if you see me at a convention, or if you see me on one of these shows where there's a bit of an audience, I'm going to be energetic because I thrive around other people. But sometimes, just don't have the energy for anything. And people are different. Sometimes some people might have other responsibilities. And this is the other half of the uncomfortable truth. Like, if I want to make a game, well, I didn't have the finances to necessarily draw stuff, so I managed to draw it myself, but then I've got the privilege that I'm able to do it myself, and everyone is in different situations. That's the one thing that I want to make clear, that you have different obstacles. Everyone else has different obstacles. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and take care of yourself. You are more important than your creations. If there's a day, if there's a day when you feel guilty about not having done some work that you feel you ought to, just remember you are more important than the things you're making. Motivation. I want to say, find your why. Think back to what is the reason that you're doing this. What is the thing that you would like to be known for, or what is the thing like you would like to experience? Are you seeking the joy of doing the thing? Are you seeking the joy of going through the process? Because ideally, that is almost the best way to do it, because then you can't be disappointed. If you're seeking to earn many thousands of pounds per year by making board games, or if you're seeking to have a hit game, or when your goal is the destination rather than the process, that can be more problematic, So I would encourage you, if possible, to focus on the journey. But I totally understand. Sometimes I feel like, yeah, I didn't enjoy my most recent game, a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. I sometimes after doing one of the drawings, I was like, I would write down the times after each drawing I did, so I could feel, okay, I managed to do that in 15 minutes. I feel a little bit of an achievement. And then, okay, it's another drawing done. And then eventually, hey, I've done my drawings for the day. So I try to concentrate on these small milestones, but I don't enjoy the process myself. I am very much, and I understand that this is unhealthy, I am motivated by the end result, by having people at the end playing my thing, enjoying the thing. But then, if you can, try and find motivation in that playtest. Find motivation in people offering you time, because when someone playtests your game, and if someone says, hey, this game is way too complex and this should be removed, let's remove the fact that, okay, are they wording it in the best way? That suggests that your thing has value. It has enough value to be critiqued. Be brave. You are awesome, regardless of this thing. And that is a lot of what it comes down to. You have to try and be willing to put yourself out there and be willing to have people say, yeah, this isn't great. And so it's almost time for the Q&A. But the one last thing that I want to say is to remember, if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, it is that whatever you do, whatever the fuck you do, it is probably okay. And because you have value, your ideas have value, and you can do whatever you want, as long as it's all done with consent. So yeah, hopefully that's been answered some questions, and yeah, thank you very much, Elf Boy, for the compliment. And if there's any questions, then please feel free to go ahead and ask. Oh, are you muted?
Well, you can just assume I was saying wonderful things about you in that presentation. Do it, but don't do it perfectly, and be okay with that. I'm nailing it.
Boom. Yeah, you're doing the thing. That's what it's all about.
It is. It was such a good reflection on the process of a creator, because there are so many things that can stop you along the way, whether you're making a board game or art or anything. There are so many ways to trip yourself up and stop doing something. But I feel like we all create for a joy of it in the beginning. That's what motivates you to start, is something that you're excited about and something that you want to see or that you want to do. And it's such a satisfying feeling when you're able to follow that through to a conclusion that feels good to you.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, it definitely felt like I've always loved games. My first memory is of a Spectrum loading screen. And I don't know if this is going to be too horrible for people's ears, but it went like that sort of thing for about 5-10 minutes. And then eventually got this really lo-fi game and with pixelated graphics, or maybe it wouldn't even load. And then you'd have to go through the whole process for another 10 minutes. But I was just captured by this, and through my childhood, I like Arkanoid and Prince of Persia and Lode Runner were things that I saw, and I always dreamed of being able to make these worlds. And then when I found out about more modern board games, which were a lot better designed than some of the stuff that I had played in the past, I mean, I still think Stratego is a fairly alright game. But when it comes to the old licensed stuff like Defender, and which I just bought because, Defender, board game, I wonder what that's like. And it was a charity shop find. But yeah, I want to contribute to the gaming landscape, and I wonder if that can be more problematic than doing it for the joy of the craft itself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's such a value in recognizing why you're creating, like you had said, though, that for some people it can be for the joy of doing it, and for some it can be to contribute or to cause a change or spur a reaction, that all of those or any combination of those and so many other reasons are all also valid. And I definitely come from the land of everything is for the joy of it and for the fun of it, but that's not why everyone creates. And some people create because it's their job. There are plenty of people in this industry too who that's their day job, and they go and do that, and then they go home to their other passion projects and hobbies when they're done. And for them, this is a means to an end. So there's so many different reasons to create. I'm always in the it's got to be for fun.
Yeah, I don't think that when people say don't do this if you want to make money, I mean, it depends how you see that. I think it's okay to want to make money. I think, that almost devalues the work and the time that people are putting in. If you say, oh, don't do this if you want to make money, it's like, sure, it might not be the most efficient way. And yeah, there might be lots of people wanting to do it. But yeah, if you want to be a developer or a publisher, it's hard work. You're not guaranteed money by any means. And I mean, if you are up for programming, that's probably a far better way to do things than, where you're going to be hired by someone. And frankly, I do miss the reliability of having, a boss kind of telling me, this is what you've got to do, and me having a to-do list that someone else has given me and ticking the things off and being, hey, I've made all the meals, I've cut the fish, I've ordered the food, I've done all the things, and now I can, wait until all the customers go off and the shop's closed, and then I'll go home for the night.
Yeah, that definitely can make things easier. It's sometimes harder when you have to be accountable to yourself. So we've got some comments here, I think, and if anybody has questions, feel free to shout those out. We'd love to let Bez answer your questions.
Yeah, please, if you've got anything where you feel like, or if you feel like something in particular is holding you back, or if you feel like something is, or if you want to hear a tip for something else, then please do. Yeah.
So a couple of comments we've got here to highlight. It's usually easier to keep going if there's an intrinsic motivation. Absolutely.
100%.
And then Tailwagging Game says, such a great presentation. Thanks so much for all these great reminders and insights, Bez.
Thank you very much.
And then we've got a comment here from Manuel. I think in your case, Bez, just being in the hobby and the events, you're already broadening the representation and bucking the trend. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I think it's also important that people, there's a potential danger and also a potential schema when you're worried that people will see you as representing your demographic, if you know what I mean. Because I don't want to be seen as representing what Iranian people are like. I don't even want to be seen as representing what Scottish Iranian people are like, because, there's more than one of us. And I definitely don't want to be seen as this is what a trans woman is like, or, and everyone is, but I don't take it in that way, but I just thought it was an interesting aside as an anecdote. And in your case, Manuel, much love and much appreciated.
Absolutely. A comment from Rob Harper here. I think it's fair to say don't do it just for the money, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to earn a living. Absolutely.
And if you are doing art for other people, I think one key thing about volunteering versus something that you should be paid for, I think it's the question of, could you drop out of it? And are you the one setting your terms? Because if you are the one saying, this is what I want to do, hey, then fine, you can do it for the exposure if you think you want to do it and you're excited about it and you set your terms. But don't let other people dictate that kind of thing to you. And Yeah, my fake nemesis, Ryan Estrada, has this 4D exposure Twitter account where makes a mockery of how many people are asking, hey, and it's can we get people doing art? And it's even starting to seep into game design where people say, hey, can we get someone to make a game design for me? And yeah, there are people who will prey upon your creativity.
Absolutely. All right, we do have some questions here. How do we get over the feeling that you yourself is something that is hurting the appeal of your brand, of your game?
Oh, wow. So that sounds like they're feeling like you feel like your game might be good, but then when you're demonstrating it, you feel like you're having a low energy or something, or maybe you feel like other people are enjoying the game. I'm trying to understand the scenario here. I would say I could imagine that this might be something where you feel like, yeah, maybe you've got a very low image. I think that absolutely being at conventions, demoing stuff is a skill that you can develop. And I think that you can become better at teaching your game. You can become better at interacting with others. You can learn about speaking. And like all of these things, if you keep doing it over and over, you will become better. Pardon me. And so, yeah, I'm trying to if you want to give me more details, then please feel free to do so. I understand that this is already quite a vulnerable question. So I'm trying, I would say that, yeah, this is actually quite, can I come back to this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me know. I don't think I've said anything of value, but I would say that you are a great person. If, okay, the low image part. I would say if you feel uncomfortable about public speaking, go to something like Toastmasters. There are places where you can join other people who become better at speaking. You can maybe work out what improves your personal perception. I have some dysphoria sometimes, and doing certain things helps me. I mean, the easiest effort thing, even like before this, as an example, I would have liked to, prep a little bit more and, make myself look a bit more made up. But just putting on a tiny bit of lipstick, for me personally, that's something that helps me. Maybe for you, I don't know, listening to some excellent music which pumps you up with energy, or just reaffirming yourself, going to people who care for you and love you, remembering the value of the relationships, reminding yourself daily, like these small daily things can really help. If at the end of every day you say, here are some achievements that I've done, here are some things I'm proud to have done. And I try to do that when I can, and when I'm feeling at my lowest, I try to do that. And sometimes I manage to get out of bed and walk around a block, and that's the biggest achievement for today. But, think about the achievements and think about the fact that you managed to overcome everything that you are feeling, and you managed to overcome the struggles that you have, and other people aren't facing that. That makes you incredibly awesome.
That's a great question and a really great answer.
Yeah. I think it's something that we have all felt at times, absolutely. But like Bez says, those are some great tips and tricks and resources to get yourself past that,
Yeah. And lean on other people if you can.
Yes.
I make Mike manage all of our games that we co-design, and now I don't have to deal with that terrifying situation. We do have another question here. Manuel wants to know, do you feel like it's important to build a brand? In your case, your aesthetic is easy to recognize, but I wonder if it can also limit, for example, the amount of colors you can use.
I mean, the weird thing is that my games aren't actually all that red. So yeah, Freedom and Freeze, for example. I mean, yeah, Freedom and Freeze, if you go to a convention, they have the green hair, and I think they've got like one green item of clothing, but they're not that green. I mean, for me, it's purely I want people to be able to recognize me when I'm walking around. But then within my games, it's like actually here's Couple, which I'm going to be printing. And Kitty Cataclysm, it's not particularly red. This is actually fairly green. And I think it's only limiting you if you allow it to limit you. I think that, true story, there was a time in the past I made a lot of Flash games, I made a lot of Flash animations, and I only used purple, true story. So the black was like 110022 maybe, instead of, all the zeros. And then instead of white, you'd have maybe FFEEFF. So it would be like a very desaturated but kind of purple. And, everything would be a shade of purple. There'd be bluish purple, there'd be reddish purple, there'd be darks. But at a certain point, it's like, why am I doing this? And you can change yourself. And sure, people start to expect certain things from you. But I think that you can always reframe things. You can always say, hey, this is not a physical game as my second game if people really enjoyed a physical game from you. And I hate, like, with Inside the Box, where I've signed Seize the Power, which is a game about subjugation of power and discrimination, and it's decidedly asymmetric to the point where some people have greater chance to win if everyone plays equally well, then it is very much outside of my wheelhouse. But it's about not reinventing yourself, but reminding that it's not like you're a band or it's more important, I would say, for publishers. I would say for publishers, for bands, it's more important, but for an artist, for a designer, you do whatever you want, and it's important to be known. I don't think it's important to be pigeonholed. Honestly, the red is kind of a gimmick.
True honesty. All right, we have another question here on publishers and edgy themes. With publishers needing to toe a less controversial line and self-publishing can open you up to undeserved criticism, is there a safe haven?
No. I think that you need to, if you feel like this, why are you trying to do this edgy theme? Like, why is this important to do? If, like, in the example of Seize the Power, it's very much a political statement. It's very much trying to underline the fact that in the real world, there is asymmetry of privilege, basically. The fact that some people are getting more money and starting off with more money and more education and everything, and that's reflected in the game. I think that there are some publishers who are going to embrace that. I would say that if there's something that you can't find any publisher for, maybe ask yourself why. Maybe ask yourself if this thing needs to be done. And then if it is something that you feel really strongly about, let's say you're making something that is a genuine, not just Trump is terrible, LOL, but something which is an actual thoughtful game about the nature of how people take power and the power disparity of billionaires or whatever. Maybe then I hope that you would be able to stand behind that, even if if the criticism is honestly undeserved, then ignore those people, because you will always be criticized and there is no safe haven.
And there are definitely publishers that will publish those kinds of games, right? Mm-hmm. So, there are, I understand the comment about publishers needing to toe a less controversial line, but there are absolutely publishers who pursue that line, right? And, if your game kind of skews that way, we'll find out what other games are like yours, and then look at those publishers. Maybe they could be a safe haven.
I also there seems to be sorry, and I can't remember your real name. Elf Boy, there seems to be kind of an implicit statement that if you publish things, then that's safeguarding yourself from criticism. And I don't think that that should be the case. I think that even if you've given your design to someone else, yeah, sure, some of the design decisions you might have nothing to do with. I mean, I can honestly say that, yeah, I like Simon Caruso's artwork on Yogi. I think that some of it is great, and I did, as it happens, have a very, very small degree of inputs into it. Although I really wanted one of the cards to be decidedly different. I'm not going to say which one. It's not neither here nor there. There were like one option, and anyway. But the point is that it doesn't shield you from criticism. If at the point that Seize the Power is released, if someone says, "Oh, this game should not exist," or "this game is faultless," or "this game is tactless," then I should bear some amount of brunt of that criticism. Exactly what amount is up for debate, but it is still me, and in this case Tiz, who is my co-designer for Seize the Power, who initiated that. And so we should be able to take ownership. And I think that having your name on the box is not only a privilege, but it is also ownership, and saying, I take ownership of, if anything goes wrong with this, it's my name. And sure, I didn't do everything, but I have some degree of responsibility.
Absolutely. Well, I think that wraps up our questions here.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're at about the hour mark.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank everyone for coming, showing up, asking questions, keeping a lively chat during the presentation. That was really wonderful to see. And absolutely, thank you so much to Bez for
Thank
such
you.
a wonderful presentation. And just as insightful Q&A. It was really, really wonderful to have you on. I'm so glad we could finally make this happen.
It's been a delight. And yeah, should we sing the bye-bye song?
I think we absolutely should.
Before we sing the bye-bye song, I just want to remind people that in 2 weeks' time is going to be our last speaker series, and we are going to have Kwanchai Moria on illustration and artwork and board games. That's going to be Sunday, August 29th at 3 p.m. So please subscribe here, and you'll get a notification when we go live and all that good stuff.
And our wonderful host, Nathan Blades, will be
Yes.
back for that as well.
Yes.
So you can send off the series in professional style.
That's right. You won't have to deal with our ever darkening room as the sun sets.
All right. And on that note, thank you all for joining us. And Bez, would you like to take us out with the goodbye song?
Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. And bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. And bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.